Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
Transmutation and transportation.
Advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
This is what you see is what is to come. It's the first time you see the Space Center Wellness Center. These systems can reach man in the deepest part of the universe. As you can see, the transmutation and transportation of the soul and the physicality is within the system. And you will see each system on its own. It can reach all conditions of unwellness of the body of the man operated by doctors. It is part of the space program. And for the first time we show what is to come. And these machines have been operating for past 12 months. We know how they work. And some of you who've been to LINS sat in some of these systems. Now they've been positioned as one of the first wellness centers in the world. Now you see the future of wellness, feeding and making peaceful man out of the man. In this center in the coming months, hundreds of these units will be installed. And more or less anyone in the world can reach. As you can see, there is room enough to add huge number, and the doctors will monitor everything remote. This is more or less the hospitals of tomorrow with no patients.
And welcome everybody. Beautiful Sunday afternoon in North America. And as we always say, what makes this meeting so powerful is the visitors from all the other continents, because this is not just a North American team meeting. We're just at the end of the time zone. So we start with the Knowledge Seekers workshops on Thursday, Brazil on Friday, North America on Sunday, and the rest of the group filling in all the blanks all throughout the week. My name is Alex Skorik. I'm with Randy Miller and with Elias Sabopsitis. Good afternoon, Randy.
Good afternoon, Alex. Good afternoon, Elias.
And good afternoon, Elias. How you doing? I think he's doing okay. So the regular host, Mark Anderson, is in transit. He's coming in from Sanya. He's had a wonderful trip there, and what we'd like to do is to discuss a lot of the things that have happened. And I think what we need to do is go back to the start. And so I'm going to run a video here for about 20 minutes, if you don't mind. And this is from the, oh, no, wrong video. One moment, please. Let's see if I get the right video. Yeah, this is the right video. Here we go. So this is from the Italian community, and the whole purpose of this is to introduce this to the Italian community. But it's interesting insofar as it gives us an introduction as to what the foundation is all about. So we're just going to take an excerpt of this because it's a 1 hour long video, and I think it's very appropriate for today. So welcome everybody, and we're going to have a great day. Thank you so much for being here.
Di fronte a noi si sta aprendo una nuova era. Camminiamo insieme, un passo dietro l'altro, verso il futuro. La trasmutazione è in atto nel mondo e in noi. Guarda oltre l'orizzonte. Antichi portali aprono nuovi mondi. Passato e futuro si fondono. L'immenso trova se stesso. Fermati, sei già nel futuro. La struttura della creazione è struttura dell'esistenza stessa. Io sono vita, sono pura essenza perché l'essere è in me. Io sono l'universo perché l'intero universo è in me. Oggi è già domani.
Hi, Mr. Keshe. How are
Hello.
you? Hello.
Hey.
Good evening, and you are welcome. I'm very happy and honored to be able to host you on my channel. And I will ask my question in Italian for my follower, and then you will hear the English translation. Okay, let's start.
Okay, Mr. Keshe, let's start. Would you like to present yourself to our followers?
Yes, I don't know where to start. but my name is Keshe. I'm the head of the organization known as Keshe Foundation, based in Holland. And the foundation is primarily a scientific organization in research and development for the space. And we've been going since 2005 as a foundation, nearly 20 years coming up next year. But active in this field of space technology for nearly 45, 50 years. And we are at the beginning of this technology, and it has a lot of resistance. So the governments have a huge problem, because I can send you from Rome to New York in milliseconds, and you appear in New York with no passport, no visa, in the middle of the bedroom of your wife in New York. Oh, darling, what are you up to? So now the governments are biggest problem for the Keshe Foundation, accepting, because they lose control. In a dimension of expansion of the energy of the soul, now you call it central energy, games have changed. So what we develop now, and this technology, again, for example, this Friday, tested by so a couple of hundred, 200-300 people in China, online, live. We allow them to come in, we connect them to the system, they come in through headphones, mobile phones, and they join the session. We've done this during one of our sessions a few months ago, and every third Friday of each month till June, we have a group of people who join, and we are expanding the technology. And we're testing the technology. In the past years, people who've been addicts, they've come through the system, they lost their addiction. People who had different diseases, they come in, they lose or they improve in their condition. We haven't found solution for everything. We're just expanding the technology. And I think another 200, 300, 400 years, maybe we manage to just get to a scratch to understand part of it. This is not something that it can be done by one organization over 1 year. This is a knowledge of creation, how things are created, how we are created. And we're learning more and more about it. So we are at the earliest stages of this technology, and different aspects of this technology has been tested by many, many people. Hundreds of thousands of people around the world in the past 20 years have developed it. We collaborate with a number of countries in a direct and indirect way, some private, some government. And we are on a track to open this technology in a very vast, huge way to the Chinese government. We have signed a massive contract with the Chinese government and military, especially for space. And between 16th and 19th of March, we have a conference in Sanya in South China Sea in China, with representatives from the military, government, and knowledge seekers together to see the latest development in this technology, and how we have brought in the new communication system, in that you don't need satellites anymore. The time of the satellite and all that is finished, it's over, because we have systems now spread around the world, and people come in without going through the mobile phone, without anything. They get in touch, they communicate in different way, and for the first time we can transfer emotion. I can feel your emotion. It's not when you talk on the phone, it's just a talk, it's a word. But with your talk, I can feel your emotion. You're happy, you're sad, you're lying to me, you're cheating, you're whatever. I can feel, I can see. I feel it as an emotion. So this will come into the next generation of development, that in a way you cannot lie anymore, because it's not a verbal communication. I feel your emotion. I feel what you think. You can say I love you, but at the same time you're kissing somebody else next to you. I'm not with you. So it doesn't work anymore. The cheating is over. And a lot of people cannot do this. And we have tested this. And with this comes another new dimension with this technology, is that a lot of our illnesses are psychosomatic, as emotion creating the illness. With this technology, we see, because we can strengthen the emotion, strengthen the energy, a lot of diseases which have not been possible with tablets, you just change physicality. Now you change the emotion and the disease disappears. We have a huge record of this now. And now we're going to step by step in further development, and I'm sure with the massive support we receive from Chinese central government and military, you will see a lot of new things. Part of this is announced in past few days by the Chinese government. They delivered the newest space technology as a plasma, which is our plasma, with a small, weak plasma, which can defend armies. This is part of the Keshe Foundation work with the Chinese government and scientists working. So we've seen huge evolution in the science gradually in 20 years, but we teach freely, and people, scientists around the world pick up on it and they work with it. The new Tesla battery have been running for the past 10 years is Keshe Foundation development technology part of it. Without it, you wouldn't get this extension on your batteries. It's the evolution part of the Keshe Foundation nanotechnology, which will evolve for a space technology. Your Nokia phones you use, your phones, your Apple phones, these are all back of the Keshe Foundation nanotechnology. We didn't know this. I met the head of the research of Nokia Ericsson batteries telephone in China. I said, how do you know us? She said, I use your technology to help my mother with a cancer. I said, where did you hear about it? She says, I'm a head of Nokia Ericsson research battery development, and we're using your technology. That's how I knew if I can use that, I can use for the cancer for my mother. And so we know deeply how mobile phones are using our technology in the nano. You see a lot of changes which gradually will become prominent in science and technology. So as we develop the step by step, we release the technology, people have used it, government have used it, scientists have used it, and already you are part of the life of every day. You drive a car, you carry a mobile phone with the extended battery, this Keshe Foundation technology behind it, nanotechnology, which we introduced 20 years ago. And in Sanya in China, we will show for the first time a system like Earth. It creates energy, creates medicine, creates food, it creates motion and electricity and everything else in one system, which is less than 0.5 meter diameter. We're showing you this because it's part of our cooperation with the Chinese government and military. And so you carry this system inside your spacecraft. You don't need to take food from Earth anymore. Dependent on Earth for food is finished with this technology. Dependent on medicine in a space is finished with this technology. You get a cancer, the system is set to change your cancer. But the beauty with this technology is that because you're in it from the beginning, you never get a cancer, because most of the cancer are emotional. This system already dealt with your emotion. So you never get the cancer. And then that's 60–70% of the cancers are psychosomatic, emotionally dependent. And then we have 2 other types of cancer, then the evolution can look after it. We can give you an apple. You want an apple, you think of an apple, you connect to our system, you eat the apple, you taste the apple, you take the energy of the apple, and you feel full. You're thirsty, you think of you want water, your mouth just flashes with water. You get so much water, actually you're swallowing it. We've done this many times, so it's not a theory. but it needs to be developed fully in a bigger way. And for the first time, we show this in Sanya in China as part of our agreement with the Chinese government. And so we are at the beginning of a change of technology. And the governments know, world leaders keep on talking of emergence of a new technology. They're talking about this technology. This is what we touch every aspect of your life. How you move, how you drink, how you eat, how you breathe, how you drink. We can control your emotion directly, and we can produce materials. In Sanya, we show for the first time in public that we'll be producing gold from the air. It will rain gold. We done this last summer 2 times with Chinese military in the mountains. The whole mountain raised gold. And is tested, the material is confirmed. We can produce all the materials in the world of creation now. So science has changed, but governments have a problem with this technology because they can't control anymore. The control goes away, the central government controls goes away, and now we have convinced the Chinese that the Chinese control 95% of rare earth materials, which controls the development of the science and technology in the West, because they don't allow new technologies to come out with the rare earth materials. Now we are opening a base in America, producing rare earth materials to expand the West scientific and economical expansion. This will be announced in the next few days internationally. So it has a lot of good and bad, but on the other hand, our work is well known for what we do. But technology at this level has a lot of enemies. Pharmaceuticals don't like us because now they can't sell you what doesn't work. The energy group, they don't like us because now they cannot sell you energy which costs nothing. The material companies like mining in Africa don't like us because mining controls metals, controls most of the economy. Now you can produce as much as copper as you like in your factory at the point of need. You produce as much iron as you need at the point of need. And we have shown these now completely to the governments. That's why we are financed. Well, whatever we say, because we have shown it. We have shown system, we delivered systems. And our defense technology and space technology is well known for past more or less 12 years internationally, what we do with our space technology. And you see, you hear, but because you don't understand what goes on, it's in the news in past few days that Iran has become a new nuclear power. They have achieved nuclear weapon, which we announced weeks ago that it's been achieved. But if you think of it, now you can produce as much pure plutonium uranium in your back door, in your kitchen, as much as Iran produces. But what's the good of it? Nobody can use it in that way. So now governments, you hear Iran's become nuclear, but they're cutting up on production of nuclear material because they don't need to produce and store anymore. It used to cost millions of dollars to purify uranium to any grade, even for a power station. So much megawatts of energy, so many bases handling nuclear material. Now we can produce a kilo of uranium for less than $10. At less than, literally, we've done this, we've shown it. And it's been tested by laboratories in China, by the government military laboratories, confirming the production of over 42 materials in one test.
So 42 materials. you could produce in your kitchen. So we have a new motto, and that is we need to be radioactive free. That's the name of that tune. So as you can see, there's a lot of stuff that's going on, and it's really hard to keep up, but we're trying. And the point is that we are all part of the same process to bring the technology to the front, so that, because this is the embodiment of the freedom and emancipation of humanity. That's really what it is. And I'm thinking right now, maybe we could take a few minutes to read some quick excerpts. And I'm wondering who is ready to
I'll
step
take
forward.
the first batch.
Okay, Randy,
Okay.
please carry on.
Mr. Keshe also brought to us about opportunity that we will have in Sanya to be in contact with the cosmic rays through the Keshe Foundation systems, and with this bring changes in our own lives and on this planet. We have invited the Chinese to open a secondary scientific center for the development of technology in Sanya. And what we are announcing today is a breakthrough in the next step in Keshe Foundation's work that will bring balance into the power of sharing knowledge. We do this so one nation does not become exclusive in the knowledge. In Sanya, we will show this new technology as we already come to an agreement with the Chinese government. You will see the first cosmic ray universal system for flight and for transmutation. For those who come to Sanya, you will have to make a separate registration to be able to sit in the new system to feel it. The system will connect you to cosmic rays, and you can transmute and make cosmic flights. We have been delivering these systems to Sanya over the past few months. We've already shipped huge amounts of technology to China for this purpose. Through this work, we'll fulfill the promise of the change in 2024. The numbers add up to 8, which is a time of prosperity and good luck. We'll complete this process through sharing our knowledge. Join us in Sanya and see and test the first plasma unit and enjoy sitting in it and feeling the fields. 100 people will have the chance to sit in the new system in Sanya. Each person will be allowed a 2-hour session, but you will have to register for it. We'll bring the system with us and show its power. The system will probably remain behind for establishing the Chinese Space Center. This will be the first leg of the work, and then to Arizona and Iran.
Thank you, Randy. So
You're welcome.
that's pretty exciting. So this is what has happened in the last couple of weeks, and just to bring everybody up to date. And is anybody ready to carry on?
I can continue.
I was gonna say I could if you can hear me, but you have to hear me.
Yeah, you're loud and clear, Gail.
Okay, let me try then. Thanks. Since China was the first nation who signed an agreement with us for the new space technology, we'll show the technology first in Sanya. You will see some amazing technologies. There are some technologies that will stay with the Chinese government and military when we leave. It's the responsibility of the Iranian and Americans to speed up their operation in their country so that they are in parallel leg with the Chinese. A lot of people were asking me if we can show something in Sanya. You will see a system in Sanya that you could never imagine existed. When you go in the system, you will feel live the cosmic rays and understand how you can transmute. We'll show many other things, step by step in Sanya. Only 100 people will be allowed to sit in the system during the 4 days. Then you'll understand the future of mankind. I hope I gave you what I call the good news of every February which comes up. Maybe now you understand why we had to do the soul teachings, cosmic rays, the Ganses, and everything else. We have reached a pivotal point. I'll try to be in all 3 centers as much as possible. We want the knowledge to pass firsthand to every nation and government through the knowledge seekers. Do you want me to finish? Okay, I can finish. And finally, Mr. Keshe brought the possibility for all of us, even those of us here at this meeting who can't be in Sanya, to join this conference and this game changer for humanity. This conference will be remembered as the time when man became free from this planet.
Thank you so much, Gail. That was excellent.
It's good
I just-
news.
It's great news. Here's, I have one more page. Anyone else would like to jump in?
I'll
I can
take
do
it.
this one.
Oh, go ahead, Elias.
Hey, Elias, thank you.
In Sanya, he said you won't need headphones because he will create the environment of the fields in the conference hall. It will be like you are swimming in the fields and constantly taking them in. And this will be the only time they will do this. The Sanya conference will be remembered as the time when man became free from this planet. Maybe this will be a once in a planet's lifetime occurrence, that its inhabitants could walk into an area and become enlightened. Many knowledge seekers decided not to go for one reason or another, but mainly they probably don't understand the importance of it. And as he said, their soul is not mature to understand it. It's a collective expansion of the soul that has the power to create life. Many of you will wish you could have been there, but if you can create the intention of this dimension in Sanya, then you shall be there to feel it.
Thank you so much, Elias. So here we are. We've been waiting a long time to have this conference, and now we are in the past tense with this. However, this is going to be a springboard for the many, many things to follow. And we needed to have this in place because without knowing all the details, and as they will be released in a timely fashion, but over 500 of the top minds in the world were gathered there. And this will have a profound impact on the rest of us. And furthermore, through the assistance of the Brazilian community, many of us were online, and we connected through our intentions on the 4 nights of the sessions. And by the graciousness of the Brazilian team, they kept the room open all day. And so those who wanted to remain could participate, and people could come and go as they wished. I imagine that many of you who did it this way had a connection. I was there. I know I had a connection. But the biggest connection of all was the fact that we were all there on this conference of intention. And so it's not that we were in Sanya, we were in the collective intention of all of our souls. And there are a lot of lonely people around in the world. And what this clearly showed is that we're not alone. We are one nation, one planet, and one humanity. And as we've just read from the excerpts, the freedom and emancipation is at the foundation of everything that we wish to accomplish. So thank you, gang, for reading those. We have another interesting video that we'd like to bring out. And this has to do with, again, a more elaborate program that we have had with the Chinese and what is going to be foretold. So I hope you enjoy the next 20 minutes, and we'll get a little bit more background, maybe some repetition, but we'll get a little bit more background as to what is coming out of China.
We become part of the Chinese national operation. We have joined forces with Chinese government, and we become international organization. The details of the joint venture has been signed last May. So for the first time we announced, Keshe Foundation moves its formal operation to the Chinese central government's operation. And we have received a massive backing, and the new developments will come out of China Keshe Foundation. We thank Chinese leadership in recognizing the power of this technology. Many of our work has been centralized in China for the past few months since opening up the corona, and you will see products from Keshe Foundation from China, but with the quality of the Western quality standard. In that process, whatever you have in packages of Keshe Foundation left is there, and prices and the products will change to in the next 6 months, a year, to a totally different way. Promotion and sale is out of our hand. You're the scientific support and development. So if you go on the Keshe Foundation website, you will see products reduced or half price, or get one free. And there will be actually sentimental things, because that's the last time Keshe Foundation, as independent organization, puts products in the market. We are committed into Chinese government and structure of signing contract that internally within China and externally outside China, all operations will be handled by the Chinese structure. So you will see us in what we call health, material, space. We are all tied up with Chinese central government and a structure. This will bring us to where we wanted to be, to push the technology beyond barriers, to push the technology in where we want it to be. And in a way, thanks to the work of our knowledge seekers in China, we have brought the technology to that level. And as I said, we thank the Chinese leadership, His Excellency of China, in realizing the value of the new technology and allowing us to become part of the structure of science and technology. You will see evolution and changes in our work in a way that would have taken us 30, 40 years to achieve, will emerge in the coming months and years. So the teaching will carry on. As part of our agreement, our teaching will not stop. The sharing of the knowledge will not stop, but the high-level technology techs in space, defense, and others will be collaborated and agreed by the Chinese authorities before we publish. In a way, there is no stranglehold, but it gives us a freedom to do what we do. Our research centers will move into the central Chinese government hand, which means Keshe Foundation will do research with Chinese and the rest of the world scientists. The operation of the space technology, the operation of the medical and everything else. Now we are a joint partner, signed and sealed with the Chinese central government. We are not going in partnership with the Chinese organization, but we are hand in hand in China to spread the technology very rapidly. We have done many years of tests. We have done many years of research with the Chinese, with the help of our knowledge seekers. And now we have become part of the Chinese central government structure of science and technology. And we've been backed by massive financial support, but the management of the Keshe Foundation in commercialization, not in the scientific side, is not with us anymore. So what you see on the shops is the last time you buy a Keshe Foundation product, which is done by Keshe Foundation. Even though the new products will be designed, will be evolved through the knowledge of the knowledge seekers. We invite many of you in the coming times to join us in our research centers in China as a joint venture international organization, even though the Chinese operation operates and will be through Chinese government.
He has a question about whether water is a beautiful GANs or a beautiful liquid gas. It could guide us on oxygen as one of the main agents of life, as it is the common denominator between the liquid part of this planet, which is water, and the structure of the body, which is amino acid. We should have already understood this in our GANs boxes when the amino acid forms at the top. He mentions they have new knowledge seekers participating in the group in Brazil. Thanks for the guidance.
We have a property within oxygen which behaves like what I call gravitational point of the liquid and gas together. We have gravitational fields of this planet which connects to iron. That has a common denominator with oxygen. And when you speak about oxygen on its own, is a gas. When you speak about the hydrogen on its own, is a gas. But when you mix these two together as H2O, in inertia and gravitational magnetic field of the Earth, the new combination exists in both dimensions depending on the field strength and then the matter strength and what we call energy. What this means, in a matter state, this gas become liquid as water. If you bring it into the plasma energy level of it, it behaves like gas. We see this as part of the work and understanding of the behavior of materials. And this is why we can boil it, we can steam it, we can vaporize it, and we can separate it. Many of you should have understood this when you created CH3 and when you created CO2. And when you mix the CO2 with CH3, the CO2 and CH3 the carbon stays in a matter state gaseous condition of gas, where hydrogen and oxygen stay in energy level of the gaseous, which is different than the matter state combination. In the coming days, we will conduct a test in China where we will show new characteristics of gases, which is unknown to the present world of knowledge and science. And with this, we actually show how the new or the old systems of detection and confirmation does not work with plasma energy. And this will set cornerstones for development of new equipment for the detection of the plasma. In a test to be carried out by the Chinese laboratories for Keshe Foundation, we will show a new dimension in the world of science that separates the Keshe technology completely from matter state physics of today. We did this test some years ago in Belgium, and we kept very silent about it as what I call technology development, which was exclusive of the Keshe Foundation. And we use it in matter development quite rapidly and strengthened. And now, as we become part of the work with the Chinese government, of what we call Chinese scientists have to understand this, that we get collaboration between the two sciences of matter and plasma. And in that process, we can show the characteristics of, for example, hydrogen as a gas and oxygen as a gas, and the combination of the two as a plasma, but within the inertial magnetic field of the planet. This will give us a huge advantage in science and technology and separation of the two sciences. So, yes, both are gases, and a combination of the two as a gas creates a liquid conditional upon inertia and the gravitational magnetic field of the Earth. Where in a matter state, gravity comes from iron. In a liquid and gas state, gravity comes from oxygen. Even though the two coexist as one in respect to the others. Because part of the gas is part of the plasma state of the gas, converts into matter state while it still is in the state of plasma. So it shows itself as matter, as a gas, but in fact is a state of plasma. Now, with the new research centers and with the capability in our hand in the coming years, you will see Keshe Foundation centers, research centers will solve a lot of these things and open new dimensions in science. This is why we see strange things when we do things, because we always consider what we do is just matter and matter condition because we call them. And maybe by next week or the week after, we might open this new science and technology with the permission of Chinese government officials, that this knowledge can be released in public. Then you will understand. If you understand one point is, for example, nuclear warhead, we can change the nuclear warhead material into a gas state, which has no effect. While it is within the warhead, we change it to a plasma of itself, which releases and converts it. In a way, what we say we transmute it from here to there. Americans can launch a warhead, but inside it is nothing on the warhead. Even the rocket flies. And this is the beauty of new technology, understanding it. It's like shooting a blank bullet. And this is part of understanding the changes. Transition between matter and gas. And this is what happens with water. We are so used to it that we have forgotten or we never understood the reality of the existence of it, how two gases make a liquid. But in fact, they're still in the state of plasma. And that's why 95% of our body mass is a plasma of water, not water. And in the world of science, they say 95% of our weight is water. In fact, it's a plasma of water, as we always said. Within the skin of the man is a different atmospheric condition. In the coming time, in the coming progress in development and science, we all learn new languages of technology. And the amazing thing is, the youngsters will understand it better than the older, because the older have already ingrained with the wrong information. And we bring it out to be understood, therefore. So, in the coming weeks, in the coming months, be ready for that change. The teaching will come in an open manner, no formulas. You have to understand to change it to a system, which that system is your soul. How you want to link, how you want to create that link, how you control the strength of that link. And in so many ways, how you can make one soul out of the whole race of the Creator. And that is the ultimate goal. And in time, man will understand. And in time, the universal community will understand. In time, the changes will come in a position and in understanding of the science of creation, which is very different than the science of the man, which he has made for himself to understand the matter state of his life. Now we understand the power of the plasma, or what we call magnetic field motion of the creation. The most beautiful time for human race has arrived. And the beauty of it is, we are all in it, and we will work all together for it, and the change will come. In the next few months, with the development of technology, we'll see the silencing of guns, as the Chinese government will enforce peace in exchange for technology. With it, we'll see the change in American policy of gun policy, as the nuclear weapons of America will become worthless. Then we talk as one nation what we do together, and not one against each other. In so many ways, we deliver so much technology to the hand of the Chinese government with the what we call agreement for peace, that does not make Chinese government to become a superpower, but become all-inclusive power of all the humanity. I trusted the Chinese leadership, and in this trust, we have seen the correct conduct of the officials in the operation in the past few months. And we agree to go to the next step and are open and full of new knowledge, an ocean of knowledge to the Chinese leadership, that they choose which part of this ocean of knowledge can be used to speed up the process of humanity to become peaceful, for everyone to be fed, and there'll be no hunger. But as we expand this sphere of the plasma, as I said, a Chinese military guy watched it outside the building, not inside the building. As he expanded, they stood outside, they saw they can see things flying outside, not just in the room. And this brought us the expansion time. And this expansion can be gradually throughout this planet, and then beyond. I developed technologies for peace, and I developed knowledge to create the condition of peace. As always said in China, Chinese government does not put gun on the street. Chinese government creates conditions that no one can commit crime, making committing crime, it becomes so hard that you don't even think about it. And this is the way to do. We create so much knowledge that no man needs to go hungry. No man needs to commit crime to feed himself and his children. And now we have found the position to do. The center of knowledge will be based in China, and laboratories and the structures are set gradually in the coming months that knowledge seekers who work with us will come into it. As knowledge seekers, you become teachers because you have that knowledge, you have understood it, and now it's time for you to teach. We call upon many of you to join the Keshe Foundation research centers in China, and then spread the knowledge out back to your countries as we develop very rapidly new technologies. The Chinese leadership and Keshe Foundation management leadership will work hand in hand to bring the new technologies. And we make sure that it's equally shared, but it's not used against each other. These systems that are already operational in the hand of the Chinese, what they call our doctors. And now for the first time, we show you the future of the space technology in wellness. Have you received it?
Yes, I'm just about to play it here.
Okay, thank you very much. This is what you see, is what is to come. This is the first time you'll see the Space Center Wellness Center. These systems can reach man in the deepest part of the universe. We can hear somebody breathing very hard. As you can see, the transmutation and transportation of the soul and the physicality is within the system. And you will see each system on its own. It can reach all conditions of unwellness of the body of the man operated by doctors. This is not a Keshe Foundation, what we call a space, but it's part of the space program. And for the first time, we show what is to come. And these machines have been operating for past 12 months. We know how they work. And some of you who've been to LINS sat in some of these systems. Now they've been positioned as one of the first wellness centers in the world.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Just goes to show that, well, I guess first of all is, as a senior citizen, and I guess my days are numbered, I'm going to be replaced by a teenage prodigy very soon. It's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, but we're trying, we keep trying. And because it's a job that all of us need to do. As we become knowledge seekers, we also become knowledge teachers. And we need to do this in our own way. It's interesting here in North America, for instance, Brazil has a population 5 times greater than Canada. And China has a population 7 times greater than Brazil. So what that means is that the Canadian problem, which unelected officials around the world are claiming that we're the most polluting nation in the world, these are manipulated figures based on population. But the truth is that China is the greatest polluter in the world. And it's a costly venture. Not only does it cost them to provide the energy, but in terms of health, the penalty is so much greater. And so if we have in Canada 86,000 people a year dying from cancer, then you multiply that by 5 just to get a comparable figure in Brazil as an estimate, and then 7 times that for China. But the pollution in China is way worse than it is in Canada. And so I think those figures will be even greater. So the old China that we grew up with and the new China that we see today are not the same. And I think we need to have confidence in that. As North Americans, this is very difficult to accept. And we are continually reinforced with that. But the fact of the matter is, the problem that China has is so huge, they have to go with this technology because they'll never be able to clean up the mess. The responsibilities that they have are so vast. Everything from water and agriculture, farming, in terms of livestock, energy, transportation, and obviously the social fabric. Social fabric has to be taken into account. When we look at a small group of people and we see how much of an impact some hooligans might have, and multiply that by the size of China and what may be considered a nuisance becomes an outrageous problem, unmanageable, inconceivable. And so we see the videos in China where people are walking the streets at midnight. And there's so many of them, and enjoying the community. This is being very, very difficult to achieve now in Canada, and I just can't imagine what's going on in the United States. And I've seen some of the pictures, and it's distressing. So the good news is that with this distress will come awareness that something is wrong. So fundamentally, this old dog, when I was young, I envisioned a future that was super fantastic. And I never dreamt that this future, we would have regressed, not only as a society, but as an industry, as a technology. Oh, sure, we have all these wonderful advancements in technology. You know, electric vehicles that were invented 200 years ago. flat screen TVs that were invented 60 years ago. And now, you know, we're getting to enjoy those things. Well, it's a little bit late because the technology is moving ahead and we're not benefiting from that. So with the thanks to the Chinese government, and actually thanks to their misery, they're realizing that they have to change their ways because there's no future without it. And so we can trust that they will continue with this. And so we see the results at the Sanya conference. And even if you look at the pictures coming out of the venue, you come to realize that that's a whole different world. I think wherever we are on this panel today, and we look around on our streets, in our community, we can't compare to what we're seeing in Sanya. But, you know, this isn't a contest. This just, you know, seems to be the minimum requirement for civilization. And we're below the minimum requirement because I had that minimum requirement when I was a teenager. And we don't have that today. So it would be nice to even just to have that, what we had as a teenager, but we keep being satisfied with schemes too small. And we need to look for schemes much larger. And we need to be more demanding. And so we understand that this technology will bring world peace. Because if we mean to engage with the universal community, if we mean to improve the quality of life, and if we mean to find our inherent desire for freedom and emancipation, and that is really our inherent and inalienable right. So the guiding light, of course, and we keep forgetting that we were born. And many of us go through life wondering why. What is the purpose? And then what? And so what? Well, I wonder if anyone would help me read the World Peace Treaty.
I can
I'll
read it out.
Who was that?
Claudia, I can read.
And who is this, please? Let me check the. Claudia.
Yes.
Yes. Would you please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. World Peace Treaty. We, as citizens of the earth, from this moment on, accept to lay down all tools of aggression and war. I shall never think about getting involved or incite war or develop or use any tools of war on this planet or in space. And to this, I all agree and swear with my delete as property, nation, territory, council, religion, state, town, bodies, and souls. After signing this treaty, be proud to display this certificate, whatever you consider being important to you, that everyone can see and know your ethos to fellow men and the mankind and other created beauties, oh my God, beauties of Creator. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Excellent. So I'd like to, before we go into silence and cue up the guest speaker, I wonder if I can open up the floor that anyone would have some comments or contributions that they would like to talk about.
I have a story about plasma water.
Randy, I'd love to hear your story.
I gave some plasma water to a person and I sent it to them in the mail. They're driving on the freeway back home from the post office and their car begins to overheat. So they thought, oh, I can just take this couple liters of plasma water because it's just water and pour it in the radiator. Well, an hour later, I get a phone call. What's in that stuff? My car developed more power, and then all of a sudden it got so hot that the cooling system couldn't handle the energy produced, and the computer shut the car down. So the release of the energy because of the combustion and the reaction of the magnetics must have been fantastic. So it's too bad I wouldn't. It'd be interesting to take the plasma water and do some tests in an automobile engine just to see what it would do. I wonder if anybody has done any of that kind of testing.
Well, actually, Randy, there has been a lot, and we have some people who are extremely knowledgeable in the on the automotive side, and they've been doing some really wonderful things. A couple of things that come to mind. One was an experiment where they created copper tubes, and instead of nanocoating them on the outside, they were nanocoating them inside. And how they did that was when they cut the tubes, say about 10 centimeters long, and they would fill them with caustic soda and then cap the ends and let that sit, and so that would nanocoat them on the inside. And then they would take a couple of these tubes and then put in some nanocoated wires and put them through, so they kind of acted like in the core, and they hooked them up to the cigarette lighter, and they noticed the increase in energy that way. Many people have put a MAGRAV unit in the vehicle. Remember Vernie's story out of the Philippines. They were playing with the traffic, and they were able to direct the MAGRAV unit to the neighboring vehicles as they passed by. And they were a bit mischievous. Now, one of the things they did is there was this motorcycle that drove by, and as they directed the plasma energy towards them, the motorcycle would suddenly accelerate. And they realized that this was the case because the driver on the motorcycle, the rider, would engage the brake. So they'd see the brake light come on. And so they were kind of surprised to get this surge of energy. They didn't know where it came from, but they didn't want to lose control of the motorcycle. So, but that was just being playful. But the most important thing that they noticed was that they didn't have problems with the traffic insofar as well, in North America we call it road rage, and it's gotten to be extreme. And so people actually just lose total control once they get behind the steering wheel, and they feel as if they own the road, and if they get um, crossed by some other driver, then they have the right to be rude, shall we say, and sometimes even violent. So with the plasma technology, if we have it in the MagRav in the vehicle, we find that the cars around us obviously get affected by that. And I think we all know that MagRav generator inside one's home will bring more peace and harmony into the household. So of course it would bring more peace and harmony into the car and traffic surrounding it. But I have one other story that you really refreshed my mind. I did a very rude thing, and that was I think you've all heard of springs that have alkaline water and healing water and things like that. And you know, it was hard to explain that and to see the relationship, but when with the videos that we've just heard, we see the difference between matter state water and plasma water. And of course, there is another factor, and that is that they are bottling this water from these springs, and then they're shipping them all over the world. And of course, they're being sold at a premium. But the fact of the matter is that they're still in a matter state as a water. And I was gifted a bottle, and on my way home, I had the same problem. My vehicle broke down. The radiator had a leak, and so to make it home, I had to top it up with water, and the only water I had was this water that was gifted to me. And so I put it in the radiator, and then this had only been like about 20 minutes after it was gifted to me. And I consumed the whole bottle, and later on, when I confessed to the person who gifted it to me, they were very displeased. But I made it home. But I didn't have this problem that you mentioned, you know, with respect to the overheating and all that. And so I think, not that I was looking for it to overheat, that the car had already overheated, but that was because of a leak. I didn't have the water in there to cool the cooling system, but I didn't have the overheating as a result of the water. So I think I can conclude that it wasn't plasma water. But you know, of all the times to have this radiator leak was you know, within a few minutes of getting this gift of a bottle of water. So it's pretty important to carry a bottle of water around with you in the car. Except in Canada, we have such cold weather. Usually that bottle gets frozen. But nevertheless, it's I think it's a very funny story, but it clearly shows the difference between the physical water and the plasma water. And the way I've begun to describe it is that we know that we can take a bottle of water and shake it, either agitate it, you know, like a piston in a motor, or shake it back and forth like a musical instrument. And if we do this for like about 25 seconds, the water will become plasmatic, or at least have a higher energy charge. And so we should do this before we consume the water. But it's interesting, I did this with juice, and I couldn't understand why, through the process of shaking it, that the lid for the bottle was harder to open. So the pressure had built up inside. And I find that very interesting. That pressure had to come from somewhere because the lid was closed. All I did was shake it and I increased the pressure inside the bottle. But conversely, and this is just anecdotal evidence, I had bottled water that was sitting near my reactor, and this was bottled water I purchased from the store. And I never opened it. I had intended to do something with it, but it ended up sitting in the bottle unopened for many months. And over the course of those months, the bottles actually started to shrink. And I found that to be very interesting because I never opened the bottles and the water inside didn't evaporate. But because it had been within the plasma field of my reactor, the water became plasmatic automatically. And I know this to be true because I had done the pH tests where I've taken acidic water and put it beside my reactor, and without adding chemicals or without electrolyzing the water, it became alkaline. And subsequent tests, what I did was I repeated the test by putting the bottles 30 feet away from the reactor, and it did the same thing. And you may recall 4 or 5 years ago, they were doing experiments in Arizona, and they found that they could do the same thing with the water there. And maybe they were, say, 200 feet or even almost 100 meters away from the reactor. They literally had to go outside the building and across the street, and they could still feel the reactants. And then, of course, we found out that if we make a GANS of a GANS, then that even multiplies the field strength. So these may all be anecdotes, but the thing is that they are all demonstrations of the difference between the physical water and the plasmatic water. And it's not that we grasp for straws. We don't have the proper recording equipment to do this. And so in the videos today, that was brought to the foreground. So this is what we have to do. If we're looking to corroborate this evidence, then we have to have the equipment to do that. And when you look at scientific evidence and what it actually means to be scientific evidence, the only evidence that science allows is something that is validated and verified using man-made equipment. Well, plasma can be man-made, but we were born before we made the plasma. So the plasma energy was the vehicle that we used to transmit our birth. So that's two ways of doing it. One from the plasmatic field connected to the creator via the cosmic rays, and the other created through our knowledge on how to exercise the inertia fields of the magnetical gravitational force fields and to create the things that we need when we need them. So this is the new technology, and it represents freedom and emancipation of humanity. So thanks for bringing that up, Randy. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add, please? So I think what we'd like to do here. Oh, yes.
Alex, yeah, in that video that you showed, okay, I think was 495, wasn't it?
Yes.
Where Mr. Keshe was talking about the matter state. Okay, we have hydrogen gas and we have oxygen gas. And then inside of us, it's actually plasma water. And when I'm just trying to remember how he said this. Okay, when we combine, how is it that we combine it and it becomes plasma? Like if I'm doing this in the lab, what is it? I missed something there.
Oh, we've all missed something there. You
Did
see,
we?
because there is another energy state that was being referred to, and so this state has a dual personality, and we see that basically we see that in two compounds. So one compound is water. So that is to say that we have a plasma water, and the plasma water is made from plasma gases. And so the bringing together of the hydrogen and the oxygen allows it to be in a plasmatic state. And depending on the field strength of the environment, it can be either in a gaseous state or in a liquid state. So, Gail, maybe I could put you on the spot a little bit, and let's think about what kind of water do we see that might be in a gaseous state or in a liquid state in our atmosphere.
Well, I mean, if we are, I'm thinking in terms of my environment, okay? I mean, if
Right,
it's liquid,
yes.
it's raining,
Right.
and
Bingo.
then, yeah. So, and then the cloud system too, or a fog, or something like, it's not
Bingo
actually,
and more bingo.
and then when I boil water,
No, that's in the physical state.
okay, yeah, you're right, okay.
No, but this
So,
is important to understand. So what you're referring to is the steam, right?
yes.
Okay, so you can feel it.
I mean, isn't that what I was saying at the beginning? In a way, that's the matter state with the inertia of the planet.
Right.
So, and then you've pointed or helped me point out the environment does do things different, or if we observe it, it will teach us what we're missing in the creation of the intention of creation of matter. I think I'm I'm just trying to understand how I will produce the hydrogen and the oxygen like it happens in my body and become plasma.
It's a good thing that you're not responsible for that, because I think you would be a first-class failure.
Why?
Well, you're busy sitting at this meeting thinking about this. You're talking to me and the panel here. So you have to understand that your body is busy producing this plasma water inside your body
Yes. Okay.
without your assistance.
So I can use my soul.
Precisely. You see, that this is the thing. We still are looking at it from the physical standpoint. So I'm not talking about you specifically. I mean, just all of us in general. How do we do this? Well, we're already doing this. So it isn't to know how we do this, to be able to do this. It's just how do we do this to be able to explain how we do this. And so if we understand And in physiology, we understand that, the amino acids are the building blocks for protein, and then we build the organelles, then we build the organs, and all the other stuff that comes along with it. But, in all honesty, we really have to be really humbled in that regard, because all of us have managed to create over 70 trillion cells, and they're all very well organized. And well, I don't know about you, but never in my lifetime have I stopped to consider and say, well, I'd like to have a couple of kidneys, and maybe a couple of lungs would do. It was outside of my field of responsibility, if you will, on the physical state, but it was well within the domain of the responsibility of the soul. Because if the soul wanted to fulfill the intention of us to engage with the environment that we have on this earth, it didn't just look at the physicality of the earth, because it's hard to communicate on that level. So it would have to communicate with the soul of the earth. And the manifestation of the soul of the earth is interacting with the soul of the sun. So the inertia field of the interaction of the soul of the sun and the soul of the earth dictates the environment. And then the inertia field of the soul and the soul of the body and the interaction with the environment dictates the manifestation. So the manifestation is the same method, but it manifests itself differently in different people because of the nearness and proximity to the field forces, and also to the intention, and just a sequence of events that are going on. So we can only participate in that and allow it to happen. And the moment we stop and say, okay, we're going to shut everything off, and we're going to do as I say, well, you've basically taken the lowest skilled being, if you will, and promoted them to a point of authority. And we do that all the time, don't we? We always, promote the incompetence, basically promote them out of, harm's way, if you will. So, we've developed a society where, in many cases, the leaders of the company are strictly figureheads, and then there's always the minions down below who are working diligently to keep the ship slow and steady and on the proper course. So that's not the way the soul operates, but the soul does defer to the intention of the soul of the man and the physicality. And this is the delay in consequences that we have. And this is the unique characteristic of engaging with the environment of the earth. And it's specifically this delay in consequences that we abuse. So we see that as a right to abuse. And we need to correct our ways, because clearly it's not working. So we really have to defer to what is working. So fortunately, you were born. Fortunately, you were a baby. And fortunately, you grew up into be an adult. And fortunately, you weren't in charge. Because if you were in charge physically, I don't think that you would have the capability to do that. Because if I asked you to do that now, you know, you wouldn't be able to do that because you would have to manage your heart, your lung, your pancreas, your liver, your adrenal glands, your brain, your left eye, your right eye. And I don't know if your ears are engaged yet, you know, you have to hear. And it's just too much to take into account. So, and in the meantime, we want to enjoy the quality of life on this planet, don't we? So if you're enjoying the quality of the life, I mean, that's one of the reasons we go on the holidays, you know. Said, oh, you know, there's a problem with the company back home. Yeah, well, there's people looking after that. I'm on holidays. Thank you very much. Don't bother me. Well, you can't do that with your body. And this is one of the things I realized when we lost our health in our family. You know, cancer didn't take Christmas holidays. And it was, you know, it's funny to hear, you know, people, you know, you tell them, well, you know, I know of something that might be able to help you or something that would, you know, contribute to your health and well-being. Okay, well, we're on our way to Florida, you know, we're snowbirds, and we'll be back in a couple of months so we can talk about it then. So the health and wellness of the individual is put on the back burner for the sake of the holiday. And your health and well-being never takes a holiday. So you are always able to produce this plasma water within. And understand that when you produce the plasma water, you're also producing protein at the same time. That goes hand in hand. And if you look at the equation, you have oxygen and hydrogen, so that's your water. And what's the other one? Well, the other one is carbon dioxide. So how come carbon dioxide is a gas? Because carbon is a solid. And then we find out that there's two types of CO2 gas. There's one that's in a gaseous state that we can use to put out forest fires, but it will also asphyxiate. Then we have another CO2 gas, which will also put out forest fires, but sentient beings, living things within that field will survive. So therefore, even the CO2 gas has a dual personality. And so you have 3 of the 4 elements that you require for amino acid. Well, where's that 4th element? Well, oxygen is 8 and carbon is 6, and hydrogen is 1. So if you reduce the oxygen by 1, you have nitrogen. If you increase the carbon by 1, you have nitrogen. And so when you look at the atmosphere of the Earth, and it's 70% nitrogen, or even more, I think it's 79%. And you say, well, why do we have so much nitrogen, and where did that all come from? If the initiating inertia field is the amalgamation of hydrogen plasma and oxygen plasma, where did the nitrogen come from? So, and this is what I'm going to dabble in today, is the surface reaction that we have of where the Earth and its magnetic field that goes around as part of the magnetosphere, and the interaction of that with the plasmatic reaction coming from the sun. So the interaction of the Earth field and the sun field creates an environment. And then our presence in there accommodates that. And our physicality becomes the manifestation of that. And so if we can understand that sequence, then instead of begging the physicality to fix ourselves, we really should be enlisting the services of the soul to fix ourselves the way we were born and the way we grew up. But I'm really glad that you asked that question, because I think it's fundamental to what we've been missing in terms of physics. And also, what I'm really glad is that you came up with the correct answer, because I haven't lost a lot of sleep over it, but I've often wondered, why are the clouds up there? And what brings the clouds down, and what brings the clouds up? And you know, how come the only clouds that I ever saw when I was a kid was when I got into a waiting room and everybody was smoking, and there was so much smoke I couldn't see the other end of the room. And the only way that I could actually navigate is because I was 6 years old and I was kind of close to the ground below the smoke, but everybody else's head was up in the clouds. And this is just the way we function on this earth. And you know, we're just not mature enough to realize that we spend money to buy things that make our health poorer, and then we need money to make our health better. Well, wouldn't it be better, you know, to not waste the money on ruining our health? But you know, what a lot of people say, well, you know, you only have one life, you only live once, and you want to have fun while you're living. Well, when you lose your health, you lose everything. Nothing else matters. And nothing, absolutely nothing, feels better than feeling good. So we really have to understand the science so that we can make our environment here a better place. And then once we achieve that, then we can socialize with the rest of the universal community and really have a party.
I have a story about clouds.
Sure. I go ahead, Randy.
When I moved to Thailand in 2001, there was nothing but blue skies on the island that I lived at. Less than 5 years later, there were clouds. And I noticed that as the population of the island grew, the construction of buildings, the more cars, the more motorbikes, the more trips the ferries made back and forth from the mainland to the island, these clouds grew. The amount of the clouds grew. And then we had more rain. The locals had said in the last few years that I was on the island, we've never seen so much rain. So the people themselves and what they created in that environment changed the total environment of the whole island. Never mind, probably the entire country. So we have to realize that we have to work in harmony with Mother Nature. But one thing that I've always had the question, and no one's ever been able to answer it. We were taught in school that hydrogen is a gas, and oxygen is a gas, and H2O is water. So where and how does that liquid come about into being in the physicality? Where does it come from? How is it created? Can anyone answer that question for me?
Well, Gail just did. It comes in the rain, and it comes in the snow.
I want to add one little thing. Since I have a lot of beautiful indigenous trees, on the leaves there is bacteria and so on. And you know, with the movement, the evaporation, the clouds are seeded by the trees. And that's how the rain, one of the ways for the rain to come. That fascinated me so much.
That's interesting, Gail, because on the island, there wasn't that many that many trees to create the amount of rain that was coming. So something else.
That's why I was pointing that out. That's one way that nature does it. But in your case, the pollution, it sounds like there was a huge amount of
Oh yes, as the years went on, you could see the pollution levels in the air, but you could also see the pollution levels in the ocean.
yeah. But you
You could,
had a way of seeding, well, every movement that happened was generating some sort of clouds, and the pollution of some kinds of it created the seeds for the clouds to produce their rain, to become heavy.
And there's another factor, of course, is that the clouds don't respect the natural boundaries that we've created on this planet.
very true.
Right? So we have westerlies and other
Can I say something?
wind patterns. Jalal, good day.
Hi everyone. Good day, Alex. Good day, Randy. Everyone. I think what Jill said is very interesting. If we consider the amino acid above the book is the rain, how which created. What's happened? So who's creating the rain is the earth itself. It's not the sky. The gravitational magnetic field of Maghreb positioning of that spot, it creates that attraction. For this cloud or for this gases to manifest itself as a cloud and then as a rain. This is the same point when Mr. Cass said you eat only 20% and 80% is from the environment. If we understand it, and we understand the relationship between what we are eating to create what? Alex, can you open this topic, please? When we eat, what we are doing? What to create what? To have this 80% from the atmosphere. And if we go with the teaching of Mr. Cash, it is the first CO2 box. But there is one level above, and that is if we consider this gases is what the body is doing. What about GANs of the GANs? Which level is that? This needs to be think about. I was yesterday speaking about it with my wife because there is someone speaks about the fasting, in Ramadan, and he said, "Yeah, you all hungry and thirsty, but you know what? Muhammad, bless his name, he was fasting for 3 days, and he told them, don't do what I do, because you do not." And I said, it's very easy to be understandable. It's very easy to be understandable. If you went and you made the GANs of the GANs, there is no material in that case. You don't put nano-coated copper and zinc or copper or whatever as a material. You went one step higher. So you are dealing with the fields. Now, think about what Mr. Cass said in the last teaching. He said, if you think about banana and you know how to connect, you will have a banana. If you connect to the water, you will have the water. Because actually what's happening in the body of the man, nothing can enter it. There is no matter state enter your cell. So what's happening? So this is the need. I think you need to discuss this thing. If we understand it, then we can go one level higher and we will try to mimic it in what we have actually, what we have. Do we change the environment for us not to take from carbon 14? This is our gel, you know. Carbon 14 is our gel.
That's right.
So what we do? What was in Senya is the womb of the mother. All what you need, all what you want is there. All the energy which created you is there. But did anyone took from it? We will hear from them when they are coming back.
So can I paraphrase a little bit of what you said there, Jalal?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Well, the 80% of the energy that we get in your example, I believe, is the GANs of the GANs, because we are GANs beings. So we don't have to digest or convert that plasma energy into plasma. It already is in a plasma. It just has to combine with the plasma energy that we already have. But in this environment, if we are 20% deficient in terms of energy, then we supplement that by the eating, and that eating requires us to convert that to GAN.
This is the point. If our body is GANs, and what we are doing for this GANs is to attract 80% from the environment. So why we don't change the understanding of this 20%? This is what keep this all body working. This is 20% of the food, and we convert it to what? We convert it to magnets, which have been taken by the cells of the body, and this magnet will attract similar magnets, which in a way make another magnetic positioning, bigger or smaller, or pushing or pulling in that environment, which make this movement between the cells.
I'd like to ask you a question, Jalal.
Yes.
The 20% deficiency that we have on the earth, which is really attributed to the fact that we're coming down into the physical state. So we had to go through kind of a process of decay of sorts, where we will have less energy. Why do you think that is?
Because we are depending, creating the plasma from a lower state, and this lower state is the food and the air and the water even. This is lower state. This is the state of carbon 12.
Do you think that we adopted that.
Yes. That's
And
why
so,
that's why you have this what you call digestion system and all what is connected to it, the liver, the kidney, the all the intestines, the big intestine, small intestine.
yeah,
All
but
this device is we are created it for converting the carbon 12 for mono energetic plasma for this cells inside our body to attract another, or you know what's happening. It is how much this cell creates within it plasma energy that it receives the higher carbon 14 from the atmosphere. It's exactly what we are doing in the CO2 book. We are not dealing with the matter, but we are dealing with one part higher from the matter, and this is the nano, yes? Now, what the nano do? What the nano do? It make the environment for you to create a field, plasmatic field, which this itself attracts another field from the environment, similar. But what happened? It's this package, it do not come alone. It comes with the other partner. It's exactly the same thing what we do with our body. Exactly the same thing. If you create in this cell, let's say, a magnet of carbon, the carbon will come with his partner. We call it amino acid. Where it will stick to your skin. Did we convert this? No, we wash it up. And even that, it's coming from a matter state. So even it is what we call a gaseous, but it's very weak. It's coming from a matter state, like CO2 box. What is higher in this CO2 box? Which gas? When you use the field now, gas of the gas. What that mean? You put two gases to create a field. It's the same field, it's the same carbon, but it is one level higher than the matter state. Now, what kind of carbon will attract? What kind of amino acid will attract? 100% it is above the first box. Exactly like a food. If you eat, this is the first box. Now, what is higher in your body? Is it the physicality? Or is it the emotion? Or is it the soul? Now, the emotion is one step higher than the physical. And this is exactly what Mr. Keshe is saying. You go and you create it by your emotion. Don't be afraid. You will not die. You let go of the matter state. But who, any one of us, do not do that, because he built all this, all this gadget inside our body to work. Then, am I stupid to all these thousands of years? No, you are not. But now it's a new condition. Now you have to go and you try it.
so Jalal, can we forward our position, say 3 months down the road, and we're able to do transmutation?
Yeah.
And you end up going to a planet that is very much like Earth and very much uninhabited. And because you're transmuting, you will leave all your boo-boos behind, right?
Yes.
Would your digestive system be considered the baggage that you leave behind?
You will leave all your body here. Your body do not go there. It's not working.
But now you're going to manifest on the new planet. Would you manifest there without the digestive system?
What is the planet provide there? You do. 1 second, please.
I understood we take the fields of our body. We take all of the fields within the soul.
And so the memory of the soul would include everything that we have at the present state in our physicality that would be functioning in proper, in good working order, the way it was intended.
You mean if the new planet was identical?
Yeah.
Yeah, then it would be the same. Depending on where you go on that planet.
But
didn't we
go ahead, Ray.
live on pure plasma energy in the womb? And didn't our problem with digestion began when we came from the womb in the plasma into the physicality and we had to give it food? Is that where some of we lost that 20%? Or we had to refresh the 20%? We lived on the plasma of the mother, of the energy in the womb, didn't we?
Or was that
What
the
if-
point you had to make the decision either or?
That's true too.
I think the answer to our question was already answered a while back when we had the knowledge seekers in Linz when they were inside the systems that Mr. Keshe made. A lot of them, when they came out, they said they weren't hungry at all for a day. Some weren't hungry for 2 days, 3 days. And so the reason is because they were fed by the fields. So if you are transmuting, de facto, you are covered by the fields. So if you're covered by the fields, you don't need to be fed. So that was already demonstrated by the knowledge seekers. So I guess we didn't really think about it in the way that we're sort of talking about it now. If the fields can feed you, and they have fed those that were there, and we had the testimony of those people that were there. So either we didn't understand it, or we perhaps did not connect the two. And so when I thought about it, I said, oh yeah, they were fed by the fields. So if they were fed by the fields, if we transmute, do we not then feed from the fields? In fact, if you transmute, you have to think about it in the 1, 2, 3 logical sequence. If they were able to be fed by the fields without transmuting, now that we transmute 100%, why can't we feed from the fields? So I think it's the question should be rephrased in my mind. That is, okay, we transmute to a new place on planet Zeus. Okay, we already don't need to eat because we already have the fields to feed us if we materialize, right? So then the question is, if we wanted to eat, just say, okay, I really miss eating something because I remember when I was on Earth, we used to go and we used to have, let's say, pizza. Now, question is, can I have pizza here? Well, the planet that you are in may not have the same amino acid structure. It may not support the Cohen structure that Earth has, which allows you to have a pizza. So then that becomes more like a science question is, okay, what Cohen fields do you need? What kind of material do you need to create the flavor, the texture, and the taste of pizza? So I think it's more of an academic question that we're asking here. Well, in my understanding anyway.
Can
you.
I add to that, Alliance?
Yeah, go ahead, Jalal. Thank you.
Just ask yourself, when you are in the dream state, are you walking? Are you flying? Are you rolling? What you do in the dream time? Did you think about what is your state, in which shape you are. A lot of us think that you are in this same physicality, but who says so? And do you need any food? Why now is the food is so much problem? But if you want to experience this now, look what Mr. Khan said. If you change the interior for you to interact with the exterior, or you change the exterior, that means you change the environment for you to have it inside. It always works both ways. So what we do, we eat inside, making the magnet inside for this magnet to interact with the outside. Now, why don't you change the outside? Why don't you make this environment of plasmatic condition? And all of us, we know how. Every one of you, he know how. And sit in it. And don't eat. Don't go back to the metaphase. You know, one thing Mr. Cash always telling us, even with the maghrab, what he said, if you hook it, don't take it out. Because it needs to readjust itself again, and maybe it takes 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 6 months. It's the same thing. If you connect yourself to this plasmatic field, don't disconnect. Don't go back to the meta state. Don't eat, don't drink. Even, you know, guys, some of the knowledge seekers really feedback for us information that the man, even he didn't breathe for a time, but because he was very afraid of the condition, he go back and breathe. He have all the energy. He do not need to breathe, you know. 1 second, please.
If I may add, one of the big differences with the transmutation, let's say going to another environment that will be similar to Earth, we would go there as an adult. We wouldn't go there as a baby as we did here originally. And on that basis, then we wouldn't go through the womb and the birthing process over there. So it's, you know, going through that process, we can't come as an adult. We have to come as a baby. And in that manner, we became dependent on the society, what it was doing. And so obviously we had a kind of feeding, but again, it was an external feeding. And so we grew up with that. But if we were to go to another planet, we wouldn't have to face that circumstance. And so maybe we would carry our digestive system as a memory, but we wouldn't have to use it the way we're using it right now. We would obviously opt to get 100% of the energy from the environment the way it's intended. Any comments on that?
Yes, Alex, thank you for mentioning that. I think we need to look at maybe a larger context, and that is Mr. Keshe said in a recent workshop that we're going to change the planet Earth and allow man to absorb fields. And so man will not need to kill in order to live. And he said that's going to change a lot of things on this planet. Animals will no longer kill in order to eat, right? If they need to eat, they're not going to go out and kill other animals. like they do right now, because they have the same problem we have, and that is they rely on that 20%. They rely to get energy on that 20% by consuming other entities, other living things. So he said the faces of man, the feature of man will change. And what he means by that is if we stop eating, our mouths will change, right? There are extraterrestrials which do not have mouths. We have to ask the question why? Because they do not need to eat in order to receive energy. So they don't have digestive systems. So slowly we will change physically. Our features will change. And Mr. Keshe actually said that. And so the characteristics of man will change. Our faces will change. The faces of anger will change. Well, why is that? Because when you stop eating meat, your face changes. The features of your face will change. People that eat a lot of plant-based diets have different features. People that eat meat have different features, right? And so that's what he was referring to. So here on this planet, we know for sure that mankind will change. The features will change because we'll stop eating. And so as you stop eating over a period of time, your digestive system starts to change. And that inevitably would lead to a change in the organ structure as well. So all these things we'll be learning step by step. But these are excellent questions that we are asking, because obviously as knowledge seekers, we need to understand, and we need to come to the understanding and be able to teach others as well.
I think with this knowledge, really we can do a lot. But you know, it's a habit of the man. Show me to why I waste time. You show me, and okay, if it's okay, I will do. But everything is there. We didn't went a little bit higher, and even in the understanding, we take the plasma, and still we are eating, and we are doing a lot of stuff that we need to, at least we reduce it for us to go one step above. It's a beautiful knowledge, and I think Mr. Keshe is putting drop by drop back to his teaching, trying very hard for us to understand what really he's saying. Because after all these years, I think we need to just stop and think. What is really happening? What we need to do? Yes, please.
Jalal, you know, the NASA, you know, before they send manned flight, they sent a chimpanzee, I think, into the flight. Do you think we should do that? We should get a family of monkeys together and see if we can.
You know what? I'm thinking. I will put my monkey brain to that and send it out.
We just have to teach them how to do the banana trick. That's all. Then they're done. They're finished.
That's all. Simple as this.
Yeah, but then the monkeys would have to teach us.
In a way, we're monkeys. We have to see ourselves as monkeys, as knowledge seekers. We are one of the first monkeys. And Mr. Keshe realizes that we need to go step by step. We need to go slowly. And you know what? It's kind of funny, and we should laugh about it because it is funny. A lot of us have made testimonials that we have reduced the amount of food that we've eaten, and I have too, quite a bit actually. I still need to eat, but at the same time, I don't eat as much as I used to. And then when I see members of the family around the dinner table, I say, my God, I used to eat like that. I can't eat like that. And they're all looking at me weird. Why are you eating? You're just putting like a small piece on your plate. Are you okay? And they ask me and they look at me and they say, what's the matter with this guy? You know, he used to eat, he used to eat like us. Now he's eating like a little bird, you know? And so I realized, yeah, you know, I'm not eating as much. And when I try to eat as much as I used to, I don't feel good at all. I feel weak, I feel tired, and I feel sleepy. And then I said, what did I do? Oh, I just ate like I used to eat. So now every time I eat, I realize I'm eating much, much less. But I haven't gotten to the point where I stop eating. So I think Mr. Keshe is slowly working with us and maybe change the way we absorb the fields. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I've reduced by about 60%, I would say, and I ran into a serious dilemma was that I was actually putting on the weight. And of course, so even though I'm eating less, I was obviously drawing more energy from the plasma state. So if I add the energy consumption between the two, then I was actually taking on more energy. And I was quite worried about that for several months. And I thought, well, maybe if I eat a little bit less, or I change the type of diet and things like that. But I've managed to even eat. I'd say I'm down to about 70% less than what I was doing last year. But I've come to a kind of level where for the first time I've actually seen a reduction in weight. And I'd say, well, like within the last 5 months, and it, you know, it may not be significant, but I've lost about 6 pounds. And the thing that is significant is I didn't put on 6 pounds. So that's where I was getting a little bit worried. And of course, the other problems that go along with putting on more weight, of course, it puts more pressure on your bones and makes it harder to climb the stairs and everything. So now that I've started to lose some weight, I'm finding that overall I'm feeling a little bit better. But the truth of it is that I think that I am getting used to it. I am acclimating my body to the new reality, and I'm only being able to do that by giving it the time to adjust. You know, perhaps I wasn't graceful enough. That's what I'm saying. And I think I just kind of calmed down over the weight gain and just carried on with the program and tried to, shall we say, draw more energy from the plasma and just remind myself. But again, it has to come from the soul. It can't come from the physicality. It just, you kind of remind yourself and say, oh,
Wait. What you said, it have to come from the soul.
the soul, yeah.
Okay, why don't you create outside your body a soul for your soul to interact with? What's
Okay,
happening?
this is something I
What?
don't understand. Can you explain a little bit more?
Okay. What we have carbon 12 and we have carbon 14, which both of them, guys, listen to me. We have carbon 12 and we have carbon 14, which is both of them in the matter state. In the matter state. Your soul is coming out of the interaction of the emotion and the soul of physicality, the soul of physicality, and the soul of the emotion. That means the soul of the man. Now, make environment, make a room, make set of magraphs, which only provide you with fields. Adjust it everything you do, it will work. If is it not 100%, it will work 50%. If is it not 50%, it is 1%, but it will work. You have to find the fulcrum point of this energy, which is really when you come to it, you will feel something else. You will feel that something happened with your body as energy. Now, if you are dealing with that, you are not putting the physicality, trying to feel. That means you put the highest in your emotion. The highest of your emotion, it is one step from the soul. It's a layering, you know. When you are trying to feel a field, any field, don't try to see it. Don't try to touch it. Don't try to hear it. Don't try even to breathe it. All of these, it's a gadget of the physicality. So where you go to feel it. It's not a heat. It's not a cold. It's a feeling within you. When you feel it, that means now you can interact with it. Now think about anything you want. Stay there for 5 minutes and think about banana, and you will have this banana. This happened with Alex, and Mr. Khan speaks about it, and in his teaching, and a lot of times he came out and he taught what he done. We should now make it better. We have more understanding. When you make the guns of the guns, nobody, I didn't see anyone done it. Anyone. We're still in the guns business. But did anyone made the guns of guns? It's like this. You are using your emotion. You are using a plasma source to have another kind of gun, a high one level higher. It's the same carbon, the same oxygen, the same hydrogen, the same nitrogen, but in a higher level. That means you do not use the matter state. It's like electricity. In the electricity, you use the matter state to produce AC. Above AC is the DC. Above the DC is the universal DC. If you want to carry out and work with the universal DC, you cannot work with the AC. The food. Because the food is a matter state. Call it whatever you call it, carbon 12, carbon 14, carbon 100. Still in the matter state. You are converting the matter state as a food for the gases. Now go one step higher. Create let's say a matter state from the fields. Now you can create a food from the field. It needs only understanding, and when you understand it, you go and you make it. It works with your body 100%. You will be satisfied. You will be full, and you will see you do not need to eat. If you drink, this is a matter state. Yes, this is a gases, but it's a matter state. You go back to the carbon 12. But if you use the highest of these gases, and what is that? It is the soul of this, what you are making, the gases. If you put it in a magra, you are dealing with the field. If you put it with a crystal ball or something, you are dealing with the field. You are not consuming. as a drinking or whatever. Even you do not need to breathe it, although it have a beautiful, beautiful smell. Did anyone take in his hand an old zinc plate, which he worked with, let's say, CO2 or something, and try to smell it? It has such a beautiful smell and such a sensation. It's remarkably beautiful. But anyway, work with the field. For 10 years, Mutaka said, work with the field, work with the field, don't go to the meta state. The same thing with the food, it's a meta state. Any kind of food, vertical, horizontal, people, it's a matter state. It came out of a matter. Carbon 12, a higher of it, what? Carbon 13, carbon 14, 15, 16, 17, say whatever you say. Still in that matter state of the inertia of the earth. So you have the chance to create whatever you want. So why don't you go and you make a higher? In that plasmatic condition, what is the higher? Is it numbers or losing the numbers to make a higher plasma source? I think more we go to the hydrogen level, more we have energy. In a plasmatic condition, it can deliver whatever you want. But it's good what Del said here. I did want to put her on the spot, but she ran very fast and she made something good. Thank you. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Jalal. It's great to have you here. I think we've all learned a ton from you. And Gail, do you think we rounded out the answer to your question?
We're doing a step-by-step of what we think we want to know right now, but we'll probably get a big shock as we go along. So many more things are coming to light. And thank you, Jalal.
No, thank you, guys.
Jalal,
Yes.
I think it's appropriate you explain that exercise that you teach us about the hands. I am doing this usually after you teach us.
Yeah, and
I think it's appropriate we are talking about.
you have to have a source.
What?
You have to have a source.
I didn't understand.
You need a source.
A source. A source?
Source.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you said salt. Okay. Sorry.
I cannot pronounce the S because of my teeth, my condition.
Are you better, Jalal?
Yeah, I am better.
Okay.
Thank you. But look, guys, you need a source to help you just to stand up, and then you let go. You do not depend on it, like gazing and something like this. It's only a source for you to go one step higher. But your source now, it's what you are doing. This Ganses. It gives you a very good push. Really, when you have the trust that you will not die, this is the problem. That's all. We are afraid of dying. We are afraid of suffering. We are afraid of pain. But once you connect yourself with any maghraf or any plasma you do, then you will have the trust in your soul. And that we can do, all of us. No one can abuse, because it's you and what you are doing. Maybe you can abuse yourself. That is okay. If we are used to be abused, but it's yourself. And even that, gradually you build a trust. Then maybe next week we can do one step little bit higher. And then will be that very great when this community can add a lot to the knowledge. I think all of you have the knowledge, but you need to sit down and think about the field. Go make one place, as a room, as a box, as whatever. Connect it to you. Build it with your hand, step by step. You know what you are creating, what you want, what you need from it. Make it for angles, like a pyramid, like a star formation, whatever. It makes no difference. This is your place. This is the place where you sit in and you can nourish your physicality. If it didn't work, there is something you need to adjust. If you feel hungry, that means it's working the opposite. Gravitational, magnetical. If it is giving you too much, you make to adjust it. It's working magnetical, gravitational. This is so. You can play with it. It is not forced on you. The condition, you can manipulate it. 1 millimeter from here, 1 centimeter from here, one above, one down, one more ganses, one this ganses, to create a field. And it will create, because you believe in what you have from knowledge. You put one nano-coated plate and one non-coated plate, and you made this ganses. And it worked remarkably with the other entities, which you call agriculture. Why don't it work with you? You do not want to let go this eating thing, because it is your mother who is getting this food. Let's go, as Mr. Kat said. Come, darling, I will give you this food. It is Mother Earth. And this physicality with everything you want. But now, for you, you have to go out. Now, there is no Mother Earth outside. What are you going to do? You're going to kill everyone there to have this energy? We will go out with our physicality. In a spaceship, you call a UFO, you call a bike, you call a car. We will go. But then, what you will do there? The same habit? You're going to breathe? What you going to breathe if there is no air there? You're going to drink? What you going to drink if there is no water? Oh, you're going to eat, and there is entity, they have right to exist. And as Mr. Kat said, you want to hunt it, they will hunt you, because they are more stronger. You are coming to their environment. If we don't learn here, and we make our own reserve energy reservoir, we can take it with us wherever we go. And itself connected here to Earth. Itself, this gadget, is connected to Earth. So whenever you are depleting that source from energy, it will feed back from Earth, because it has the inertia of the plate. You all heard that from Mr. Cat. But in a way, we didn't connect it in the right way. We want to see before we understand. But if you understand before you see, you will understand more. Then you do not need to see.
This
Okay.
was a great conversation, Jalal. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, my dear.
And thanks, Gail and Claudia and the gang for this beautiful conversation. Do you think, Elias, Randy, do you think we have time for that guest speaker to still come on?
Absolutely. More learning, more knowledge. We need to
Randy,
be fed.
where is my copy, Randy?
I sent it to you already. You didn't get it?
No. You send it by DHL or what?
I sent it by soul to soul.
Okay, then it's received. Thank you.
Jalal,
Yes, my dear. Yeah, beautiful picture, Randy. Thank you. Yes,
That's the coffee I sent you.
thank you, my dear.
okay. Let's use the Sanya geography there to give us a few moments of silence, and let's get ready for the special guest speaker that's on his way. So let's take a few minutes in silence like we did with the Brazilian community, forwarding our intentions and our interactions with all the people in Sanya at the conference there.
And that
And
time, I'm going to receive my copy from Randy.
yes,
Thank you.
thank you. And also, let's not forget the purpose that we're here. We're here to bring peace on this planet. So join us now in silence with your emotion and desires, and let's support our wishes. Okay, we'll be back in about 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let's hope our wishes and intentions will come true faster. And so let's carry on with the next part of the program here. As per usual, we do have to start out with the disclaimer. So allow us to get going with that. And we're going to get into the new session today.
Disclaimer. The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you're all going to enjoy this session today. And this is part of the North American plasma teaching on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. So please fasten your seatbelts and enjoy the program. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute teachings on plasma science. We are racing along on the advanced transmission section. We're going to discuss surface reactants today. My name is Alexander. I am from Canada. It's March 24th, 2024. This is the Keshe Foundation North America Plasma Education Series. So, as we said, we are all knowledge seekers, and eventually we're all going to be knowledge teachers and knowledge explorers and everything else. And so we've been doing this for several years. And the reason we're doing that is because we are intending to bring peace on Earth. And so step by step, we're going through basic teachings, intermediate teachings, and advanced teachings. And now we're talking about the advanced transmission and what it means exactly. So we've discussed the Z-axis dimension, pressure, luster, and today we're going to be discussing surface reactants. And surface reactants is very important because a lot of us only believe in what we see or what we touch or what we feel, and we don't believe in anything else. And until we see that, we have a lot of hesitancy. We call that donkey hesitancy, or it could even be monkey hesitancy, but that's because we've been dependent on the lowest energy state. And even in that energy state, you know, we rely on walking, but you know, we've discovered that rolling is faster than walking. But before we were able to get rolling vehicles, we had to get up on that horse because the horse walking was faster than our walking. And so what is the point? the point is to progress point by point, step by step, or step by cycle. And we wonder, well, how many steps is it going to take? How many classes do we have to have? How many cycles is it going to take? How many points overall? And there is no rule. There's no rule in that regard, but there is a rule in the universal order of creation of matters, and that was outlined in book number 1 by Moran Tevakoli Keshe. And what it did is it shows the coming together of 3 basic forces, which we called matter, dark matter, and antimatter. But when we say that it all came together, the question is, well, how did it come together? And so that was outlined in book number 2, which is the structure of light. So that's one way that the energy was transmitted. Well, this is very good. Then, of course, is book number 3, which is the origin of the universe. And if we had the universal creation of matter, then where does the origin of the universe fit in? And then we find that from this universe, we created a sister universe and man's universe. And where exactly are we? So this is kind of important because we're also doing transmutation training, and we're in the process of doing a 6-month series starting in January of this year, extending till June. And that's a very important time frame because we just finished the convention in Sanya, China, and we will be doing the next one in Iran, and it'll probably come right after the finish of the 6th session. So the 3rd session is this March 29th coming up. And so every week we're trying to bring peace on this planet because really that's what it's all about. And not only because there's a method to the madness, and that is this madness of joining the universal community. Because without solving this particular problem, forget about it. We've been doing this for 318, one planet, one nation, one race for justice and world peace seminars every Tuesday. And that's not the least of it. We've been also doing this for thousands and thousands of years, and we have succeeded. We have succeeded in failing because we've been searching for outer space to get to that point on the plasma highway, to get to that little pie in the sky and beyond. And, we've been having trouble. So why are we having this trouble? Because we're trying to get on the plasma highway and we haven't mastered our understanding of that because we're still down here on the transmission highway. So what are we talking about? Well, we have put a limitation, an arbitrary limitation on us because the speed of light is the fastest transmission. And if that is indeed the fastest transmission, and everything that we see is so much bigger than what we have right here, that means in order for us to go at that high speed, we also have to be very large. And then if we get there, well, what is beyond? And, we just don't know which one is which, really, because are we here? Are we there? And we don't have enough answers. We keep asking questions. So we always have to go to the beginning and ask about the creation of the universe and how it is created. So fundamentally, it exists from energy, and that energy, of course, then is positive. So if it's positive, how come it has a charge? Well, because it's always in motion. And when it's in motion, that means it comes from somewhere or goes to somewhere. So when we look at the cover of book number 1, we see the coming together of these 3 types of matter. But when we look at the rest of the universe, then this matter has to go somewhere. And where exactly does it go? So we had the opportunity to build the cups of life, and we found that we had an emotional strength and a physical strength. And not only did that come from within our inner space, but it also came from this nebulous point in the universe. And for many of us, we had varying degrees of success. And all of that reflected the radiance manifestation of the GANs. So that means it had to take into account the person who was building the cup of life. And this was really, really difficult because none of these ganses were part of the ingredients. All of these ganses were the result of bringing together a structure to make the cups of life. And we developed a carbon dioxide GANs, a calcium GANs, a zinc GANs, copper GANs, water GANs, and an amino acid GANs. And did we know that there was a water GANs or an amino acid GANs? And so we try to understand how these different field forces come together. And we've seen the rotation of the x-axis and the polarity of the y-axis and the field strength of the z-axis. But in fact, these are all dimensions of transmission. And so they become the medium. But are they the message? Because that's really what we want. Because when we get these dimensions coming together, as two forces come together, they had to come from somewhere. Why did they come? What is their purpose? What are they trying to achieve? And so these are all the manifestations of a system of field capture. And so we find that the x-axis is parallel to the ground and the y-axis is perpendicular to the ground. And the z-axis, well, it doesn't have a ground because it's all around. And when you bring all these things together, then they have to move. And somehow they change their position. Well, what is that difference in position? So we've discovered that changing of the position is a two-way transmission. And so it's more than just the two dimensions. It's a two-way street, and each street has two directions. And on that street, we can go in more than two sizes. And so we see two variables and two lanes on each street. So two lanes, two sizes, two directions, it's all two-way. And that means that the energy can be flowing or binding. And in that process, there is a characteristic of the charge. And we say it's negative or positive, but we have to understand that the negative gives and the positive takes. Well, when does the negative give and when does the positive take? And when are they flowing and when are they binding? So we find that from the scientist by the name of Herman Weyl, that there's no such thing as one and the same energy, which constitutes a charge at two adjacent increments of time. So in other words, it's a definite portion of matter, and it's the embodiment of the principles of flow and connection, and that's what we're talking about. So we are just spinning along and changing our position and trying to understand that not only do we have to do transmission on the x-axis, y-axis, and the z-axis, but we need to maintain our conformity. The fact that those fields have come together into one field. And so we need to maintain that while we're doing the transmission. So this is why in the process of the transmission, we just have to speed along. But we have many elements in the periodic table of elements, and each and every one of them has manifest in the same way. Well, how can everything manifest in the same way and still have this kind of variety? And if we don't go into those details, then we have to recognize that humanity has variety as well. So how can we have so much variety if we've all manifested in the same way? And then if we all did that individually, then why would you want to steal from someone else who is dependent on that energy which created the manifestation in the first place? And right then, right there is the number one stumbling block, not only in our society, but in humanity as a whole on this planet. And the thing is, it extends beyond our little tiny perfect world. because our little tiny perfect world is part of the transmission in which we've seen the forces come together with this x-axis of rotation, the y-axis of polarity, and the z-axis of field strength. So when we're looking at some of these ingredients, and just excuse me 1 second here, there is a fundamental product in our life, which is called water. And there's another fundamental product in our life, which is called amino acid. And oil and water don't mix. And yet we have these phospholipids around our cells, which have hydrophilic heads and hydrophobic tails. And it's a good thing that we have that, because if oil and water did mix, and we're made of both oil and water, then we would just be big bags of mush. So there are some chemistries, such as surfactants, and they're seen as substances in, for example, a detergent. When added to a liquid, it reduces the surface tension, thereby increasing the spreading and wetting properties of water. And we use this in the dyeing of textiles. It allows the dye to penetrate the fabric evenly. We're also used to disperse aqueous suspensions of insoluble dyes and perfumes. There are many uses of this, and this is a very important chemistry that's within our lifestyle, but it changes the surface reactants. And it throws us a little bit out of balance. So I want to introduce another concept, and we all know about internal combustion motors with a crankshaft. And a crankshaft is a mechanical component used in a piston engine to convert the reciprocating motion into rotational motion. So it has one or more crank pins that are driven by pistons via connecting rods. So you can see that the crankshaft is roundish, but the individual components are in different position as the crankshaft rotates. So the picture on the right shows the crankshaft in red and the pistons in gray. And so the pistons go up and down as the alignment on that position on the crankshaft changes. And these pistons go up and down within cylinders, and then there's a flywheel that you see in the black. The point of it is that when this is in balance, you don't have the vibration, you don't have the wobbling, and you have a nice, even, balanced rotation. So although the crankshaft doesn't look balanced, once it's rotating, it does become balanced. Well, how does that compare to something else that we've been operating in? And this has to do with what we understand about spinning tops. And spinning tops can be in a horizontal or a vertical position. They're in a horizontal position when they don't spin. But once they spin, they become very stable. So they lose that wobbling aspect. And the question then comes, how do they get into this vertical position? So there's a lot of clattering that goes on and perpendicular spinning, and eventually they always stand up vertically. But sometimes they can flip over and they still stand up vertically, but they always seem to right their position. So when we look at the principal interactions of the sun and the earth, and we see that it's energy in motion, it's a two-way street. And there is a wobble, and there is a way for them to stay balanced. And there's an interaction, but they are clearly of different sizes. And so that's when they work together. But what happens when you look at the Earth and you see that it has a hemispheric rotation? In other words, the northern hemisphere rotates in the opposite direction to the southern hemisphere. So which way now are we flipping the poles? So this becomes a very important discussion when we get down to the results from Dino Kraspedon, who was doing the mathematical residue, where he suggested that God is a set of mutually perpendicular lines of force oscillating upon themselves. And so what becomes very important in this description here is that the points on the edge of the cube are the points of attraction and repulsion. And so the travel from point to point is along the surface. And the distance to that point makes a difference. And if there is a travel of 1 along the x-axis, which in this case are the red lines, then the y-axis cannot choose that route. That route has already been predetermined. So the y-axis has to take the yellow route. So what does that leave the z-axis? Well, it can't take either of those other two. It has to take a third route. And so what you find is that all the surface areas of the cube are able to accept a route, but we have a couple of surface areas left over. And so these become open to invitation from interaction from other fields. And what's really interesting is that in order to go from one point to another, and the easiest way would be with a straight line, we have to go with a crooked line. And then if we take that cube and just slightly move it, we find that it starts to take a hexagonal shape. So now the question becomes, which lines are the axes going to follow? And so let's see what it means in a two-dimensional picture. So if we look at the hexagon, and it's not rotating, but it is stable. So there must be a rotation somewhere. And it cannot be stationary, it has to wobble. So it could wobble left or it could wobble right in this case, but there's no predetermination. But what would happen if in the process it had to flip? And why would it flip? Because the surface of it came in contact with something else which caused it to flip, and we don't see what that is here. And so that would be the entire hexagon changing its position. So in other words, here we have positive at the top, negative at the bottom. And now we have positive at the bottom, negative at the top. So things have flipped around. But what happens if we remove one of those sides? Well, there's only 5 left, but this is not a pentagon. This is still a hexagon, and it's only using 5 of the 6 sides. And now what would happen if that flipped over? Well, clearly, it would be like turning a key in a lock. It's very different. So that is one byproduct of flipping. But there are other factors. And so if you wanted to determine the nearness and proximity to these other fields, depending on the position now, so if we take the left-hand position where we have the negative charge on the left, and we flip that over, it still is on the left, but it's not in the same position, because the one on the right has also flipped the positive and negative charge. In fact, the positive and negative charge in the top and bottom has also flipped. So something is nearer than what it was, or something is farther than what it was, and something is interacting more with one field and less with the other. And so the nearness and proximity has changed through this flipping. But nothing has changed in terms of the form. And so this is what happens when we look at the glucose and what it happens within our body to create energy. It goes through a process of phosphorylation, and this phosphorylation happens at the terminating points, the endpoints. And basically, each of these endpoints is not a point, but it is a field, and that field will flip over. So the entire hexagon shape will maintain its position, but it will not be the same. In one case, it'll be glucose, which actually is something that we can eat, and fructose is something which we produce from the energy derived from what we eat. And that's the way it's supposed to go in sequence. But the problem that we have is the fructose is not digestible. And then what happens if we kind of turn that on its side? It's the same thing. So that kind of rotation doesn't much matter. But what happens if we look at the whole body and how it's operating, and we see the connection of the transmission from the brain to the body, and the connection from the soul of the man and the soul of the body, and the connection of the brain to the heart, and the connection of the water and the protein within. And do we flip over? Or do we have a northern hemisphere and a southern hemisphere and rotate in the opposite direction? And then maybe at that point, we bring the two fields together and we cross over. But do we always stay crossed over? Or do we go back? And then do we cross over again? And so when we draw these kinds of pictures, they are static and we can't see very much. So we have to understand that this is always in motion. So when we try and graph this, and we see that when we look at an object, let's say like a ball, and we put it in a graph, and so we have a dimension of the ball, but it's actually not flat, it's a sphere. So it has a third dimension, the z-axis dimension. So in order to maintain the ball, that's in its Maggrav condition, balance condition, that is, but it keeps moving and it rolls along. And so the pattern that if you were to look at a point on that ball and how it would go, it would actually make a sine wave. So it goes up and down and up and down. And then if we have motion, each of these positions, and you can stop at any point in time and look at it without stopping the motion. And so at that point in motion, the sine wave is still going up and down and up and down. But now we're starting to cross over with some of these waves. And since it's a two-way street, all we're seeing is the motion of the car going forward from one position to another. So what is going on? Well, if we look at the surface, and we can see that with the surface here, that there's an attraction. And so we see two magnets that come together, and when we have on the side view, we have one is on the North Pole and one is on the South Pole. Well, opposites attract. So that's the property of attraction. But if there's attraction, that's one street. What happens when you flip the pole? Well, you have like poles, and like poles repel. So if these poles are flipping while they're in action, based on the surface reactance, but there is still a connection, then this repulsion gap also is part of the connection. And so if we flip the poles, we have the attraction, and we flip the poles, we have the repulsion, but the connection remains. So therefore, we have to understand that when that ball is moving, there are forces in both directions, and we have to take both of those into account, because the direction of motion is a two-way street, and that two-way street can only manifest into motion if there's a giving and taking. But if we look at the ball as if it had a polarity and we see all the north poles at the top, then we say, okay, so the balls are repelling. Well, that's what causes the motion. But to effect the motion, there has to be a connection. So that motion goes in both directions. And so there are overlapping connections from one point to another point to another point. Well, if we were to flip the pole, then we would have a real problem here, because then the balls wouldn't move, because the opposite poles attract. So ball number one would be attracted to ball number two, would be attracted to ball number three, would be attracted to ball number four. So there is no motion. So what does that mean? Well, it's the same thing. If the opposite of attraction is the bringing together of the field, so then the repulsion, when you have similar poles, they repel. But what happens when you flip that pole? Well, now you have an attraction gap connection. But that was the attraction before. Well, wait a second. No, this is the repulsion. So the repulsion of the poles is where the two poles repel, but the connection remains. So if you flip the pole, you see the connection remains. But if you flip the pole again, the connection remains. And then you flip it again and it still remains. Well, how can all these things keep together? What is changing? Something is changing. And so what is changing is that you don't have a sine wave anymore. A sine wave that goes into two-way street, the giving and the taking. Now you have a square wave, because the distance from the North Pole to the South Pole of the next ball is shorter than the distance from the North Pole to the bottom of the next ball, which is also the North Pole. So it's going to go across to the South Pole. But since the opposite has happened, in other words, that giving and taking opposite forces, the South Pole from the second ball will not go to the third ball. It will pick a path, go through the polar express, if you will, and then that will end up at the North Pole at the bottom. And the shortest distance then is to the South Pole on the third ball. But because the opposite force is already coming in, so there's a conflict there, so it's going to go back up the polar pole to the North Pole. And then the shortest distance is to the South Pole. So that would give you a square wave. And so that is the difference between this, where you have all the poles in the same direction, and this, where you have the poles flipped over. But the ball is still moving. The ball is still intact. We haven't disrupted the coming together of the three dimensions, the x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. So this is something else, something over and above, isn't it? And then when we look at the amino acid, what is clearly the difference? We had the four main amino acids, and we see in the thymine and the cytosine that it's only in a hexagonal format, which means there's no sugar present. And it looks like it's in a stable hexagonal format. But what we've just discussed is that not only can the poles flip, but then the hemispheres can also rotate. We're not seeing that in this picture. But what we are seeing in the other two, which are adenine and guanine, we're seeing sugar present. And what is the difference? The difference is it's pentagonal. And being pentagonal, it's asymmetric, which means that when it flips over, it changes its shape. So the hexagonal format can flip and not change its shape, but the pentagonal can't. This is the key difference. And so we find that if we want to operate with the energy of the universe, we have to have this balance where we have all of these amino acids working together, some without sugar and some with sugar. Why? Because the sugar is the energy, the plasmatic energy that feeds us. And so the hexagonal forms are flipping and the pentagonal forms are flipping. But what you have to consider are all the six sides of the hexagonal form always in place. Because clearly, if you look at the form of the cytosine, you have on the bottom left, one hydrogen. On the top right, you have a nitrogen and two hydrogen. Well, that's not symmetric. And if you look at the bottom, you have one oxygen. And if you look at the top, you have one hydrogen. That's not symmetric either. So what's interesting, if you look at the adenine, it also has on the bottom left one hydrogen, and in the top right a nitrogen with two hydrogen, just like the cytosine, except that now it is incorporating a sugar in there as well. And so if that flips over, that is a totally different thing. And so not only does that change the energy flow, but it changes it from being flowing or binding, from giving or taking. But then if we get into a situation where we don't have the balance of these amino acids, where some carry sugar and some don't carry sugar, or in other words, let's be sugar dependent, that sugar dependency comes from a physical diet of sugar. And we cannot process it because the sugar creates the fructose and we can't process it. We need to digest the glucose and make fructose. This is the difference. So when we're looking at the balance, we have to understand it is not just symmetry versus asymmetry. This is the giving and the taking and the change in polarity, the flipping of the poles all the time. And so if we carry on, then we understand that in the plasma rule, the higher strength feeds the weaker strength, but if two weaker strengths come together, then that's a point of conflict. And so how does that get resolved? Well, in some cases, we will have a deflection. In other cases, we could have an explosion. And in other cases, that energy could completely vanish. And you say, well, why would that energy vanish? And where would it go? Well, now we understand the difference between the physical transmission and the plasmatic transmission, because this is where things start to disappear. So that means there are things that appear and things that disappear. And so very frequently, Mr. Keshe talks about it, bend it like Beckham. And if you're not a soccer fan, David Beckham was a famous professional footballer, and he's presently the co-owner of Inter Miami and Salford City. But he had a particular skill, and he became very famous. And so here he is, kicking a ball to the goalie, and the goalie is looking at the ball coming to him. And a funny thing happens. He has put some energy into that ball to make it flip. And that has an effect, and it bends the ball. And so he's shooting towards the net. But as we said, there's an opposite energy. So we know that if you kick the ball, unlike a rocket in space that's just going to keep on going, the ball will eventually slow down and stop. So there's an opposite force. But if there's another force that comes in, a conflicting force, then there'll be a deflection. And so that's what he's done. And the pressure on the ball is to go to the right. And so why Bend It Like Beckham became famous was because in 2002, there was a sports comedy drama film that was created, and basically it honored the skill level of David Beckham, but it was about an Indian family. And you could clearly see from the original intention that the ball has moved quite a bit in its trajectory. And so the storyline of the story is that there's a culture clash, and it's humorous. It's an Indian family in London, and they tried to raise their soccer playing daughter in a traditional way. But she had a tarty elder sister who was preparing for an Indian wedding and a lifetime of cooking the perfect chapati. But the dream was to play soccer professionally like her hero, David Beckham, not like her tardy elder sister. And it was against her unorthodox ambition. Her parents eventually revealed that their reservations had more to do with protecting her than with holding her back. But she forced to make a choice between tradition and her beloved sport. And her family had to decide whether to let her chase her dream and a soccer ball. And so she mastered the skill to bend it like Beckham. And so that was the success of her story. And in Germany, they had to change the name of the film to Kick It Like Beckham to avoid confusion about what bending meant. But so we understand that bending is a signature skill of Beckham's, where he can kick the ball so it curves around obstacles and is harder for a goalie to track. And you can see the distance from the original trajectory of the ball to where it ended up is very, very significant. So I think we understand when fatty acids are straight and then they start to bend, then we see the relationship between oxygen and hydrogen. So the convergence, the gravitational convergence of oxygen is in the center of the bending. And of course, water is really, really important because it's like a parceling unit. It's the solvent of the universe, or our Earth anyway. We call it H2O because we say it has 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. But the thing about it is that the water has a capability of shearing an electron. In this case, the electron is the hydrogen. So it's no longer water. It is a hydroxyl. And so therefore, this hydroxyl now has a negative charge because it's lost some energy. And it's looking to come together and combine with something else. And it combines with a lot of things. And so there's a force of attraction. And so what's interesting about this force of attraction is that there's a surface attraction, and we call this a meniscus. In physics, the meniscus is the curve in the upper surface of the liquid close to the surface of the container or another object produced by surface tension. So the meniscus itself is the curvature, and that curvature can be either convex or concave. And this is often observed when liquids are placed into a container. So in understanding the meniscus, it helps us accurately measure the volume of liquids, but it also provides an interesting insight into the forces of cohesion and adhesion. So if we look at the meniscus of water in a glass tube, we find that the outer edges of the water curve upwards, creating a concave meniscus. But mercury, which we know is a lot more dense than water, when it comes in contact with the sides of the glass tube, it curves downwards, creating a convex meniscus. So we can see that the transition from the concave to the convex has a lot to do with density, and density has a lot to do with gravity. So, what does this adhesion mean? Well, in terms of capillary action, and we say the meniscus is that curved liquid surface that results from the interplay of adhesion. So the adhesion is the liquid's attraction to its container. And what is cohesion? Well, that's the liquid's attraction to itself. Adhesion drives the capillary action. And we see that where we have a narrowed tube and the liquid is drawn up. We also see this in a daisy chain connection, where, say, the water comes in on the left and all the planters in this connection are at the same gravitational height. So it isn't terraced. They're all at the same level. So how does the water go from one to the other? Well, you set up a tube and you fill it with water. And as you put water in on the one side, it goes through capillary action from one to the next, to the next, to the next, and then out. And you can use that as a garden feature and impress your friends on your scientific knowledge. So when we look at this water and we say, well, water, H2O, that means it's hydrogen 1 plus another 1 and oxygen 8. And so when you get the two together, that's 10. 1 and 1 plus 8 is 10. And 10 fills the pH scale. The pH scale goes from 1 to 14. And it changes from one scale to another once it hits 10. But what you're seeing here is stability. If we remove one of the hydrogen, you just shear that right off. Now you have instability. Now you have a hydroxyl. And so that hydroxyl still maintains its magnetical gravitational relationship, but that now has a negative charge, and that wants to go somewhere. And so this is now the difference when we're understanding the dynamic plasma aura. So we have an emission out of the North Pole that's part of our soul spectrum that's feeding. And then it follows the path around and comes down to this feedback, which is a radiance feedback. Well, how can it go out and then come back? If it goes out as a negative, then at some point in time, it has to flip over. Why would it flip over? How do you bend it like Beckham? Because there is nothing in this picture to show. The only thing it shows is that there's a change in position. Well, the change in position then reflects motion, energy in motion. And so now we see the magnetical surface reactance and how things came to be on this planet. When you look at the magnetical emission from the sun interacting with the magnetical emission from the planet. And so when we say magnetical, we're talking about a plasmatic emission. And so the interaction of those two plasmatic emissions create an inertia field and then a manifestation, which we see as hydrogen. And when that plasmatic hydrogen comes into the physical state, it has a fingerprint, and that's the hydrogen's spectrum, and it's unique. And so that hydrogen spectrum picks up all of these waves, whether they're sine waves or square waves, or they're pole flipping, or they are giving a surface away and then taking a surface back from another location, but you don't give and take from the same side. You give one way, you have to flip over and take from another way, and then you give it again, and then you flip over and take again. And so you're constantly flipping back and forth, and so you create this wavelength. And as you're constantly flipping over, it's done at a certain frequency, and the interaction of the wavelength and the frequency will give you a color. And all of these colors are constant in terms of the relationship between wavelength and frequency. And the reason that is constant is because the speed of light is constant. And there we are in the yellow submarine in the sea of green. And where are we going? And so when you look at the red, you see that's the lowest energy. And when you look at the violet, that's the highest energy in the color spectrum. And then you see the graph of our souls, and then you wonder what's beyond. And you see that there's a difference in amplitude, and there's a difference in frequency, and there's a difference in the wavelength, and there's also a flat line. And so what part is the physical transmission, and what part is the soul transmission? And so we are now coming to understand the transmission spectrum. And so they say, well, WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. Oh, really? Well, they also say that beauty is skin deep. Well, therefore, ugly must be skin deep also. And we know that's not true, because we see sometimes, well, we might say, oh, well, that's an ugly duckling. And then a few years later, that's a beautiful swan. And so we're misunderstanding the difference between surface superficiality and internal substance. So surface superficiality is the physicality surface reactance, and the plasma substrate is the inner space. And when we look at the electromagnetic spectrum and we see these colors and we see the rest of the spectrum, well, what we're seeing is such a small part of the whole reality. And we can go to the red side or to the violet side, and one step beyond, and another step, and another step, and another step. And we can't see any of it, but it's there. It's all part of our earth space embodiment. So we can't be the one to be the dependable one. We have too many variables in our 3 dimensions. So the earth space is our common denominator. It's much more dependable. But we still have cycles. Even the earth goes into cycles. So the fact that we can go through these cycles without losing our conformity means that we are Magra dependent, and these frequency of these cycles are also Magra dependent. And the containment within that conformity is Magra dependent. And so we can flip and rotate and do everything, and it's all based on the nearness and proximity and the coexistence filtering that we can all do. And so, you know, we're seeking this purity, the plasma purity, devoid of contaminants, devoid of oxidation, and devoid of atmospheric combination in the physical state. So when we look at the Ganses and we see the impact on the different energy fields, then we start to understand where this hole in the middle of the Gans is and where the soul resides. So when we're talking about transmission, we come to the conclusion that the release of the binding energy has to precede the retrieval of the beneficial energy. the field release has to precede the field capture. The giving precedes the taking. Therefore, the emission precedes the absorption. So the motion cannot exist without the coexistence, because a motion and motion is a product of existence. Both the motion and coexistence resides in both matter states. That's the plasma state and the physical state. But the plasma state is the dominant state that precedes the physical dominant state. And that's where we become dimension centric. So you said it's not man space centric. It could be Earth space centric. We're not sure about the sun space dimension, but the containment is definitely dimension centric, and the proximity is dimension centric. So, and the nature of pressure is dimension centric. So we can see that when we're dependent on the feedback, things like sound, light, heat, pressure, luster, and superficiality, that is the dominant aspect of our universe. So when we're talking about the matter plasma dimension in relationship with our physicality and our plasmatic reality, we find that our problem resides in the fact that we are feedback dominant. So that means physically dominant. And so the Keshe plasma space research teams will have to come together to help man understand how we can proceed to enjoy the Earth space, go into outer space, and have the grace of our inner space, because we have no choice in understanding these spaces, but we do have the choices, because we're now in the post-March 15th, 2024 era, where the choice is ours to enjoy the bountiful space and the transmutation space. So we have, for 530 Thursdays in a row, presented the Knowledge Seekers Workshop, seeking that greater oneness, where we can maintain our conformity regardless of the rotating fields and the transmission dimension, because that is going to transcend the limitations of nuclear science. So this is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute Teachings in Plasma Science, and welcome all the beautiful knowledge seekers. It really is time to wake up and smell the coffee. There's a world peace treaty. Sign it with your pen, sign it with the soul, and sign it with a deep and thorough intention, because the superficiality is not visible. Only the soul can see the truth. And so, is man the reactor of a three-dimensional universe? Or can man find heaven through the field transmission of vertical motion with the guidance of forward motion and perpendicular rotation? Or are we feeling the pressure of the third dimension of truth? So the message manifestation will come from beyond, one step beyond the physical surface transmission dimension. And that's why plasma science needs to continue to be delivered daily in exchange for peace on Earth. So welcome to the new outer space age. And that's the end of this lesson. Thank you all. I hope you enjoyed this trip. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to ask or any questions? Well, if that's the way it's going to be,
We're all on silent mode, transmitting soul to soul. We can't hear that on the call.
It's beyond the visible and audible range. Well, you know, the learning curve has been very, very steep, but actually it's getting easier. So, you know, it's hard to believe, but it's getting easier. So I think we just have to realize that, you know, it's kind of distressing that Mr. Keshe said, you know, it might take us another 400 years to learn. But the fact that we can extend our life beyond what we understand it to be at this point in time is very comforting. Because why would you want to be on this earth and, you know, age, get weaker, accumulate boo-boos, lose the quality of life, and still participate in the physicality? That's not the way it's intended. We had a vitality as youth, we should have a vitality as seniors. And we now have the technology to bring that forward. And so those who are opposed to this, well, there's something wrong. And it's too bad for them. But we now have the capability of moving ahead. So in our discussion, and today we discussed this part of advanced transmission, we have to understand that there's more than just what's happening on the surface. We have to delve deeper. And we will. Because now we understand what it means to be superficial, what it means to be physical, and what it means to ignore the underlining currents. So we can all learn how to bend it like Beckham. So I think maybe we should bring this meeting to a close. And I want to thank you all for allowing me to present. And we'll look forward to next week's exciting episode. Remember, the One Nation will be on Tuesday, and another Knowledge Seekers workshop will be coming on Thursday, and follow with the Brazil Week workshop on Friday. And Mark Anderson will be back next week hosting, and I will be here again, trying to make another presentation. And I want to thank you, Randy and Elias, for helping me co-host. It's been a real pleasure working with you. And let's remember that it's not easy to do, but in everything that we do, we are role models for others. And as Mr. Keshe said, you know, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. So we're looking forward to the youth to come and replace us. And that wouldn't be so bad, because then we can do more. We can be more and do more and carry on with making this heaven on earth. So in that regard, shall we proceed?
Aye, Captain, proceed. Full sail ahead.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you all. I won't go through the whole list because I'm going to miss somebody, but I really thank you all for being here and contributing in your way. And remember that others are listening. and they will listen in their own time, because we are now clearly a 24-hour knowledge seekers group. So on that basis, I will sign off, and I'll end off with a disclaimer as is required. Thank you all so much.
Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GANs processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.